are going to go ahead and get the ball rolling. We're going through an interesting one for me today. So I kind of got asked to do this. It was related to workflows and going over some of the workflows. And so I decided to preface going over some of the workflows, which we'll do in coming weeks again, and start with tasks instead, because it's kind of like a step up, and then you can see how that translates into workflows. So we're going to see where we get to today. I'm Marjorie Adams. I'm going to be leading the call. So we're going to be talking about tasks first, how to add tasks, filter tasks, how to get it into Excel, because there isn't really reporting on tasks, workflows, using tasks, and specifically we're going to focus on vendor workflows today. Okay, so I am not in the sample company file today because I wanted to show some of the user-based things that we have available in here. So you can still follow along in the sample company file, the QuickBooks Online sample company file. So you can still follow along there. One of the things that we are going to be utilizing is when we come in here and we look at who our users are in the company, the users matter. So the users matter inside of here. Okay, so I'm going to come on over to my task list on the side. And notice right away we have, a nice dashboard view. So we have all open tasks. We have tasks due today. So these are just quick button filters. Overdue tasks, upcoming and completed. So quick button filters here. We can add a task, which we'll do in a second. We do have notification settings. So you can change your notification settings. So notify me about assigned tasks when they're assigned to me, completed tasks when I assign a task to someone else and they complete it, please notify me. That's a pretty cool one. And updated tasks when tasks I created or am assigned are updated. So these are the 3 notifications that you can have, and we'll look at the notifications when we add a task, like the types of notification in there. So where would this be helpful? So before I kind of go too in depth here, we have a lot of people who reach out to us and they say, I need project management software. And we say, well, what does that mean, right? And so a lot of people say, project management software, I need to know estimate versus actual, I need to know job costing, and I need to be able to assign people things to do, basically, right? So Jimmy's going to go do this. Johnny's going to go do that. So it's task-based work. In here, when you add tasks, you can tie them to different things when we do it in workflow, right? You can tie a task to an estimate as an example. So you can tie it to a job, you can tie it to a customer. So there's ways to add in tasks and tie them to features, right? So functions, transactions, list items inside of QuickBooks. And so in that way, sometimes that's good enough for the project management that they want. They want to be able to go in and just set up a project and say, these are the 10 things we need to do, and I need to know along the way when they're done. Pretty cool stuff there. Some other ways that I've seen people utilize tasks, and you'll see this again when we get into workflows more, but they utilize it for things like reminder to follow up. Check with this vendor on the price changes. So we might say we want to remember to follow back up with a vendor to ask for better pricing, or whatever, those kinds of things. So kind of internal accounting-based reminders. Now, I think what a lot of people do, well, I mean, I'm sure people have their own ways of solving this, but a lot of people do put things on their calendar, like me. I put things on my calendar when I need to do it. Even if it's 3 years from now, it's on my calendar for me to remember how to do it. But this is the way to systematize it, right? Because 3 years from now, what if I'm not here? It's on my calendar. My calendar's gone. Somebody needs to remember to do it, right? So putting it in a system is much more effective. Okay. Continuing on just kind of the look inside of here, one thing I do want to note is the give feedback area in here. I have heard more and more from the development teams about how much they listen to this give feedback. So they put it there for a reason. So if you have feedback, share it here too, but also make sure to give it to the developers. If they hear about it multiple times, then maybe you can influence product, right? All right, so we do have filters. The filters are actually pretty cool to me because we don't have a report, right? So the filters can be pretty cool. So you can filter by created by users, okay? And this is system users. It's a really neat thing. So you're assigning things to system users. In QuickBooks Desktop, you don't have the ability to assign things to users. Created by QuickBooks, right? So what things, which things, setup, notification, approvals. So that would be if it's a QuickBooks created notification or a task. Assigned to everyone, right? So created by and assigned to, the due date of the tasks, tasks related to, so here's all those different transactions, right? Or customer lists. And if it's a project, it would be on the customer list. And then what's the action? Approve, create, receive payment, okay? So which ones do we want to look at on our dashboard here? So because there's not a report, right? If I go into my, I'm zoomed in on the screen. If I come down to my reports, there's not a task report. So you're just functioning here. Okay. We do have the ability to select multiple. And notice when I select multiple, I love that they have this. You can batch mark them as completed. You can batch delete them. It tells you how many you've selected. You can select several and unselect some of them, right? Makes it a little bit easier. Oops, took me into it. I must have double clicked. Makes it a little bit easier. So they have this little pop-up here, which I think is fantastic. I love the view of it and the color of it. And then they also have, I'm clicking on the ability to, even though I clicked on it, kind of drilled into it, mark as completed, edit, and delete each line from here as well. Check and uncheck all of those. Okay, so when we mark it as completed, it of course will go onto our completed list. If we edit the task, it'll pop up this screen over here on the side and see how it is noted, right? The invoice number, it's also noted over here. But we can put in additional notes. We can also upload documents if we wanted to. So that's editing a task and then of course deleting a task as well. So pretty straightforward. If we needed to, for some reason, get these into Excel, because there also is not a drop me into Excel, I did see that if I create a blank Excel document, okay, so here's just a blank Excel document, I can copy all of my tasks here and paste it into Excel. It doesn't line up the columns exactly correctly, right? But the information comes down into here, and then you would have to, of course, play around with being able to maybe do text to columns to get things moved out of the columns the way that it is. But it's definitely something that's possible. If you needed to bring these into Excel for some reason, it's something that's possible that you could play around with. Okay. That's one of the things we talked about a couple weeks ago with the fixed asset list, right? We didn't have an ability to export yet, but I heard that that is on the most commonly asked thing is to be able to export. All right, so let's just go ahead and add a task. So I can name the task, things to remember. Maybe that's what we want to do. I can say who it's assigned to. Again, this is based on the users in the system, which is awesome. I can put a due date of it. I can make it a recurring task. So I can say start, repeat every, how often, once a month, once a year, once a day. Hopefully not once a day, that'd be a lot. Right, once a week on Wednesday, Monday, and then when is it going to end by or never end? Now the recurring makes me a little bit more nervous because you don't want to be just putting junk in the system. That's not going to be fun for anybody on your staff. But where it could potentially be is like once a month, right? On the 15th day of the month, we need to go in and look at the bank account and make sure that whatever it is, right? So it's a way for us to have the system remind us of the things that maybe we already agreed to do. Pretty cool. Okay, so tasks are pretty straightforward in that way. Now we're going to go into workflows a little bit and how they affect tasks. So workflows, we will do a separate webinar on creating custom workflows and things like that. But I'm going to talk about some of the workflows that exist already, that are already set up in here. So when we look at our vendors, right, here's a couple of workflows that are preset. And this is kind of like having a preset report. When we look at our vendors in here, we've got get reminded about unused vendor credits. So if we have a whole bunch of vendor credits that are sitting out there, maybe we would want to get reminded about it if it's been sitting out there for 6 months, because we're going to go to the vendor and say, you know what, we haven't bought anything from you for 6 months. Can we please just get a refund at this point? Or 2 months or 1 month, whatever it is, right? That's a great idea for how to utilize it. Notify if a vendor credit has been updated, right? So tell us if there's been any updates to vendor credits. Again, I don't know about that one as much. Hopefully we don't have a ton of vendor credits flowing through, but I don't know. It shouldn't be like a huge prevalent thing. But maybe if, the vendor decided not to give us a full refund, and so we had to modify the vendor credit. Again, that might be probably pretty weird, because you need to make sure you're doing things in the appropriate period and all that stuff. So that one's a little bit more strange to me. Missing vendor details. So this one's amazing. This one to me is so fantastic, right? So you can come in here and set a reminder if we need to get additional details on the vendor. If we want to let the vendor know when we've made a payment to them automatically, right? We can have that. So that's not task-based, but still cool. Pay vendor bill reminder. I think that's in a weird, it's weird, worded weirdly, right? It should be reminder to pay bill, maybe. But anyway, I keep on stumbling on that one. And then again, another vendor credit. So remind me or tell me anytime a vendor credit is brought in. So when we come in to a standard workflow here, right? So the workflow is saying we can put in a name. So vendor credit or vendor refund request, maybe. And so we can decide if we want to send a reminder, right? What do we want to do? 30 days after vendor credit is created. This is what the parameters are that we have in here. And we can ask, so it asks you as part of the workflow, what would you like to have happen? So we can say, please create a task, a reminder task in tasks, which is, okay, could just say, please create a task. And then you can do the drop down here and decide, I want to assign the task to a particular user. And in the task name, what do I want it to say? Ask for refund. And then close task when, right, which is closed manually. You could also send a company email, right? So we're sending it to a company email in here. And you can have the option to send consolidated emails with multiples as well. Now, I'm not a big fan of the send company email. And then we can also send a push notification, right, in product. But to me, what I wanted to point out is that we have the ability to create tasks, right? So I'm not going to do these other two because they might be a bit much. It's like when you log in and you see somebody did that. I was signing up my son for a baseball lesson the other day, and they said, would you like us to email you and text you a reminder about these appointments? And I was like, my goodness, who does both of those things? So maybe don't check off all these things. You might get your staff a little bit frustrated with you. Okay, so do this in QuickBooks, right? Set a reminder. How would you like the reminder to happen? It's going to be a task. And then down below here, we say when this happens, right? When the vendor credit amount, you can say when the vendor credit amount is greater than $50, right? We're not going to go hunt down less than $50. Or you can say when it is, you know, between, and give a range if you want to. I don't know why you would do that. Or maybe say, you know, it's greater than $25, then go hunt it down. You can add in additional things, right? When the vendor is this vendor, so you can say just for some particular vendors. I don't know why they do the within and not within. It should be more like equal or not equal to, but it's a weird one. And then vendor credit payment status, right? So making sure, you know, we are only dealing with unpaid or unutilized, right, vendor credit payments. Okay. So then I would be able to save this. Let me trash that amount, and I'll say greater than 25. I would be able to save that in there. Okay. I'll just take a look at another one, the missing vendor in here, so just so you guys can get the idea. So again, we have to type the workflow name, finish filling in vendors. What do you want to do? Send reminder. Probably not that far, right? Maybe like 3 days after the vendor is created. I wouldn't give it 30 days. That'd be too long. In this one, they only have 2 options. So I'm going to uncheck this and check out what it says in tasks. So I can assign the task to, add in additional details for the vendor name that we have added, and then we can close the task manually. Okay. When this happens, if which one of these fields, right? If account number is blank, if vendor 1099 is yes, go finish filling it in. If tax identifier is blank, right? So you can see all the conditions that you can add in here. And you could set up multiple workflows. So if you leave the account number blank, you're going to get a task. And if you leave the vendor 1099 blank, you're going to get a task. Okay. And then, of course, we would have a task created. So this is a great way, too, to make sure that when you have to be careful, right? So probably, sorry, let me go back in here. You have to be careful because you want to make sure that, you know, when we go and we link to the bank account and we quickly add vendors in through bank feeds, you don't want to be getting tasks for every single one of those. So you have to be careful because it could create some chaos, a little bit of chaos. I always say I like to, and things like this, though, I do like to go broad and then narrow and learn whenever I'm setting things like this up, right? Like let them tell me there's a problem. In the same way, when I set up user security, I go tight. So I go very tight and let them come to me and ask me if they need additional things set up, additional permissions set up, okay? All right, so how to utilize these tasks. One of the things that I would be doing, so we have on, like internally here at Fourlane, we have weekly meetings with our staff, right? So in your weekly meeting with your staff or with your team, then you would come in here and you would say, okay, show me all overdue tasks, right? Or maybe show me all completed tasks. First, I would maybe start with completed first, right? Because then you can filter it down for due dates within the last week or completed within the last week, and you can celebrate the team. Good job for getting these tasks done. Thank you for getting these tasks done. Or you can look at them and say, are you sure you got that task done? Okay, you did. All right, good job, right? So a little bit of celebrating in here. That would be awesome. And then we can look at our overdue tasks as a team. Okay, so I do like pulling these up any kind of to-dos or reminders. I like pulling them up as a team. And then what we also say is we'll say, when is this on your calendar to get done, right? Because I need to make sure that you are not just sitting on these overdue tasks in here. I want to know when you will be completing this. And we can come in here and put notes in around that. Sally said she will get this done Thursday, 10/12. That way I can remember, right, next week. Okay, so this one has a note. Now I can dive into the note and click on it, and it'll tell me right there with everybody on the team looking at that screen that Sally had told us that she's going to get done Thursday. Okay. So those are just ways and tips on how to utilize tasks maybe with your team. Pull them up in one of your meetings, and let's work through them together. Okay. All right, guys, that's all I really had for today. So it'll be a shorter training. Tasks are pretty basic. We are going to go into workflows more next week, creating our own workflows or shortly. I kind of bounce around a lot, right? I try to keep you on your toes and make sure that you're learning things that maybe you'll go investigate today. Let me know if there's any other topics that you'd like me to cover. I will see you guys next week.